Okay, so today we're going to be doing a combination of lesson 5 and lesson 6. So I'm just going to write that at the top of my notebook here. And we're going to jump right into doing some practice work together. So for the first problem that I want us to look at today, you can go ahead and write this out horizontally. And that is 23 times 31. And so for this example, we are going to use the area model. So I want us to just practice using the area model and breaking that up. So I'm going to break up 30 and 1. And then I'm going to have 23 across the top. Pause here if you need to. Okay, so now our next step is going to be to multiply. So remember, we are multiplying across here. So pretend that there's like a little multiplication sign there. So 23 times 1, that's our identity property of multiplication, is 23. And then we have 23 times 30. So this one does take a little bit more work, and so I would suggest looking for ways to be able to do that. And I would do that using the standard algorithm. So over here to my side, I'm going to write 23 times 30. Since I'm multiplying and I have a 0 here, I'm going to put the 0 here as my placeholder. This holds my place value, and then I can kind of cross that out because I'm done with it. And now I can go into my standard algorithm, multiplying 3 times 3, which is 9, and then 2 times 3, which is 6. And so 690 is what I'm going to have in this spot. So I want to show you how, if I took this problem and I moved it like this, that on my first line here, 23 times 1, I would get 23. And then 23 times 3 tens, or 30, is where I would get the 690. So I wanted to show you how when I combine these, I'm now adding 3 and 0 give me 3. 9 and 2, I have to regroup, is 11. So I put 1 here in my tens and carry 1 over. 1 is regrouped to 100. I have 6 hundreds and 100 more, and that gives me 713. For our next problem, we're going to look at 343 times 21. So I am going to break this up a little bit further. So I'm going to show you what I consider the best way to solve a problem like this with my favorite strategy, which is this area model. So across the top, I'm going to split this into 20 and 1. And over here, I'm going to split this into 300, then 40, and then 3. So pause here so that you can get caught up with your area model. Okay, so now that we're back, you can see that I've broken this up into the hundreds, the tens, and the ones, and here into tens and ones. So remember that this is like my little connection here, is that little reminder that we're multiplying. So here I have 20 times 300, and we did some of this multiplication where we have 10 times hundreds. And so I'm going to get 6,000, which is a pretty big number. And then I have 300 times 1. And so that's that identity property of multiplication, which gives me 300. Now I have 40 times 20. So this is another example from earlier in the module in lesson 1, where we talked about when we multiply tens times tens, we get a number in the hundreds. So in this case, we're multiplying 2 tens times 4 tens, which gives us 800. And then 4 tens times 1 gives us 40, right? It's that identity property again. And then this one we can count. If we skip count 20, 40, 60, 2 tens times 3 ones is 60 ones, or 6 tens, and then 3 times 1 is 3. And then in this case, I would add all of these boxes on the left. So you can pause here and make sure you're caught up with your area model before we move on. But when I add all these, there's no regrouping. These are easy numbers to put together. And so here in this left column, I get 6,860. And in the right column, which I'm going to be adding these together, I get 300 plus 40 plus 3. Now you'll notice, again, doing this horizontally is not my favorite way. I do not think that that is the best way for us to be doing this math, so I'm going to rewrite this vertically so I can see clearly any regrouping that needs to be done. And so 0 and 3, when I add them together, makes 3. 6 and 4 gives me an even 10. So that's my tens place. 10 tens is equal to 100. So there's 0 in my tens place, and I carried over 100. 800s plus 300s is 1100s, plus the one I carried over is 1200s, and I can bundle one of the tens over, and that becomes thousands. So 6 and 1 more makes 7,203. So I do want to show you the way that it is broken down typically within our text for this lesson, is doing that same thing we did in the first example, where we have 343 and we're multiplying that by 21. And so on this first line, it's the identity property of multiplication. So everything is multiplied by 1, and we are getting 343. And then we are multiplying 343 by 2 tens, or 21s, which actually works out to 6,860, like you see right here. And then we add them together again to get 7,203. Pause there to make sure you're caught up with me. And then we're going to move into our next example. So our next example is 64 times 73. And so you're noticing that that becomes a little more challenging, perhaps because we're not focused solely on using that identity property of multiplication. So when we write it out, it looks like 64 times 73. And as I've said, you know I am just not a fan of doing this math horizontally. It is definitely not the best way we know how. But we are going to break it up using my favorite strategy. So the area model. So I'm going to break up this area model, and I'm going to do 60 at the bottom. And I'm going to do the 4 up here. And then across the top, I'm going to make this 70, and I'm going to make it 3. And I want to point out to you that just like this example up here, it's totally okay that we break it up a different way. It's okay. These numbers work together. Remember, this is our multiplication. So here in this corner, we're going to have 4 times 70, or 4 times 7 tens, which gives us 28 tens, or 280. And then over here, we're going to have 4 times 3, 4 ones times 3 ones, which gives us 12 ones. Now in this bottom section, we have 6 tens times 7 tens. So I want you to think about that for a moment. 60 times 70. And what do we know about when we're multiplying tens times tens, right? We're multiplying these tens times tens. We know that our answer, we should have an idea of what place value our answer is going to fall in. So in this case, we know that 6 tens times 7 tens is 4,200. And if you're saying, Miss Biggs, how did you know that? How did you know that 6 tens times 7 tens was 4,200? Well, my friends, I know that 6 times 7 is 42, and I know that 10 times 10 is 100. So in my little think bubble here, I can say 6 times 7 equals 42, 10 times 10 equals 100. 42 times 100 equals 4,200. Okay, so you think about that, use that little think bubble. I'd love to have you write out that think bubble, get used to using that to help you problem solve. And then in this last box, I have 60 times 3, and this is another example of 6 tens times 3 ones, and I can count by 60, and I can say 60, 120, 180. I can use skip counting strategies to get myself to 180. Then I'm going to just add a cross in these boxes, or I can add them down. So in this case, I'd like to show you how we would add these across, okay? So it's 280 plus 12 gives us 292. You, of course, can do this vertically. This one is not a lot of regrouping, so that's why I chose to go with that horizontal method and show you both ways. So here, 4,200 plus 180 is 4,380. Now I can add my numbers. If you notice, my numbers are not exactly lined up for place value purpose, and that can cause some big errors. So I'm going to come right over here, and I'm just going to rewrite it and make sure it's perfect. If yours is already lined up perfectly, you do not need to rewrite this. Pause here if you're not caught up. Get yourself organized so you can do this math vertically. Okay, so now we're going to start always when we're adding. Remember, adding, subtracting, multiplying, we start with that lowest place value. It's only division where we don't. So I have 2 plus 0, which gives me 2. 9 plus 8 gives me 17. So I'm going to put a 7 in the tens, and I'm regrouping 10 tens into 100. So 300 plus 200 is 500, and one more is 600, and there's nothing in the thousands to add. So the 4 comes down. And my solution to this equation is 4,672. Okay, friends, I am going to turn my page over because I think it's really important. I have plenty of space to work, and I like to be able to go back and look at my work and reference that work, right? So I'm going to give our last example for today. My last example for today, and this one is a doozy. Say, I can do it. I can't hear you. That wasn't very good. I can do it. All right, so we are going to look at this one. 814 times 39. So I'm going to go ahead and just write that out vertically. And then I'm going to draw out that awesome area model. And so this time you're going to notice that my area model looks different. And that's okay. I want to give you a lot of opportunity for seeing different examples. That's what is really awesome about this lesson today. So along my side, I'm going to do 39. So I'm going to put my 9 up here, and I'm going to break my box across this line. Yours does not have to be exactly like mine. I'm doing these as a demo, so you have different models of the area model so you can see how it works. And then I'm going to break this up by place values. So hundreds, tens, and ones. And so remember that this is that multiplication area. So now we have 9 ones times 8 hundreds, which gives us, if we know our multiplication facts, we say 9 times 8 is 72, times 100 is 7,200. And then down here I have 30 times 800. So I want you to look at that. This is the same thing as saying 8 times 3, right? 8 times 3, which gives us 24. And then this is tens. So 10 times 100 gives us thousands. So my answer is 24,000 for this box. Up in this top box, I have 9 ones times 10. We can do that quickly. We can say, most of us know our tens facts. 9 times 10 is 90. And then 9 times 4 ones is 36. So I just wanted to finish out that top box. Now I have 3 tens times 1 10. And so I can say 3 times 1 is 3. And then 10 times 10 is 100. So this is the same thing as saying 3 times 100. That's where I'm getting this. Then I have 30 times 4. So this is another example. I can say tens times ones. So I know where my answer is going to fall based on that. I can also use skip counting. I can say 30, 60, 90, 120. Or you can say this is 3 times 4, which is 12, and then it's ones times 10, which is a tens. So I have 120 in that box. So now you can add these a multitude of ways. You could add them all the way across. You could add them up and down. Pause here and you decide on this example how you're going to add them. So you decide, are you going to add the hundreds boxes first, then the tens, then the ones, or are you going to add them horizontally across? If you're adding horizontally, remember, there is a good chance you could make an error. So if you do it horizontally, just double check your work. I'll be back with you in just a moment. Okay, friends, so let's go through this. I have 24. I'm going to write mine below. As you know, I really like to see it in its place value. So I have 7,200, and then I have 24,000 that I'm adding. And so here, this is a pretty easy addition, right? 7 thousands plus 4 thousands gives me 11 thousands, which becomes 1 10,000 and 1,000. So now I have two 10,000s plus one more 10,000 gives me 31,200. So in this box, I have 31,200. I'm just gonna draw myself a little line so I know that I'm separating here. And then I had 90 plus 300, which I can easily add by place value, which gives me 390. I can do that mentally. Lots of you can too. And then the other one I have is 120 plus 36, which I can also do mentally, but I'm going to show you here just so you have it. So now I have 31,200 plus 390 plus 156. So again, I am going to be putting those vertically. I'm going to be taking all of my numbers vertically and adding them so that I can keep their place value intact and not have any potential errors. So now I have 0 and 0 and 6 to add, which gives me 6. I have 0 and 9 and 5, which hopefully you're making a connection. You know that's 14. So I'm going to put 4 here. I'm going to bring 1 over to my hundreds place, and now I have 200 plus 300, which is 500, plus 100 more, which is 600, and then don't forget this guy I brought over, which is 700. There's nothing in my thousands place except for the 1, so it comes straight down. And there's nothing in my 10,000s except for the 3. So my solution to this equation is 31,746. What I want to show you is how if we went through and did this in standard algorithm, we would have 4 times 9, which is 36. 1 times 9, which is 9, and 3 more make 12. 8 times 9 is 72, plus 1 more makes 73. 0 for the placeholder because I'm no longer multiplying my 1s, I'm multiplying the 10s. 4 times 3 10s is 12 10s, or 120. 1 times 3 is 3, plus the 1 more I brought over is 4, and then 8 times 3, I'm done with this. 8 times 3 is 24. So I now have 6 plus, I'm adding 0, 2 plus 2 is 4, 3 plus 4 is 7, 7 plus 4 makes 11, and 2, and that 1 I brought over is 3. So you can see that I'm using standard algorithm. I'm actually using standard algorithm to check the work that I did in my area model, because I just love the area model and the way that it breaks it out, and this makes it so easy for me as a teacher and a learner to find my errors. So that is it for today, and then listen to Miss Reagan and Miss Hill and Mr. Vaca for your must-do problems. I hope you all enjoyed our lesson.